Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hello there, Jackie Woodside here, the founder and the host of the Conscious Living Podcast, Strategies to Live More Consciously with Time, Money, and Life Itself. How conscious are you today? Are you checking in with yourself? What's your day going like? Just being present in this now moment, hearing my voice. If you're watching this on the computer on YouTube, you're like seeing my face, just narrowing your focus down to this next breath. It's a beautiful gift to live life consciously, and there are so many things in life that unfortunately get in the way of us being conscious. There's a constant onslaught of news and media and walking around with a computer in your hand 24/7 and all of the stimulation around us. And there's also what's happening in the world and the past traumas that we navigate through world circumstances, family circumstances. It's a lot. You know, being a human being is probably one of the most challenging assignments a soul can have. And I love that inquiry of thinking deeply about being a human being, and most importantly, being a conscious human being. So today I have just the wonderful honor and joy of working with Dr. Robert Bray from California. He is an expert in the field of traumatic stress recovery. He's been doing that for over 40 years, someone who's been in the field as long as I have, Robert. I love that. He began as a volunteer on a crisis hotline, and then throughout his career, he focused on the impact of traumatic stress. He has extensive experience as a clinician, helping people recover from all kinds of violence. He's been training, writing, and developing thought field therapy since 1996. Really looking forward to talking about that today. His book, Heal Traumatic Stress Now, Complete Recovery Through Thought Field Therapy, No Open Wounds, is a wonderful guidebook for people on how to use his methodology. So, Dr. Bray, it is just an absolute pleasure to meet you and to have you on the Conscious Living Podcast. Welcome.
Oh, it's great to be here. It's so nice to have an opportunity to share. It sounds like a lot of common values, common focus that we have. I'm a social worker. I know you're a social worker. We come from a place where it's about being of service to people and helping people be able to function much better in whatever culture you find yourself in any given moment. So thank you for having me here today.
It's really great. Anything you want to say about your journey and your background so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more?
Oh, God, what do I say? Well, I'm 73 years old. I have been living this life. My family comes from lower middle class. I was raised on a farm for 10 years, so I know what work looks like. I was found myself in a world where I had to make some decisions about, am I going to allow myself to be drafted or not? I found myself in a world where I had to come to some decisions about what I thought was important about what I would do. I have the good news about me is that I'm a fairly intelligent guy. I don't probably more so than most. And I just am so grateful for that gift. I also am very grateful for the gift of the fact that I had two parents who loved one another and thought it was their job to love and protect their boys. And that carries through, I think, in allowing me to be with people in kindness in a way that I think is important.
Having that loving, nurturing early years certainly sets you up, neurologically, that your nervous system isn't constantly looking for the next thing to go wrong. So that is a blessing for sure.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, I'm really of the school of, you know what? Thank God we have a mind. Thank God we have a body that's designed to notice what's
Yeah.
scary, what's
And
difficult.
notice and protect.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I never say to anybody, if you feel something, you're feeling the right thing, because that's the best you can do in that moment. Those sensations, that felt sense, is what keeps you alive and keeps you going in a direction that's going to be positive for all of us.
So great. So
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Really listening to those inner messages that we all have. Yeah. And sometimes our nervous system does get hijacked,
Yeah, well, we developed this pattern of, it's like we begin to get caught by the triggers.
Yes, anxiety disorders, phobias, obsessions, that's when I said our nervous system gets hijacked. Those are really very real conditions that can be very debilitating. But let's dive into your treatment approach. I would love to hear more about your work around thought field therapy. So, for novice listeners who aren't experts in mental health like you are, what is thought field therapy? And that's
Thought field therapy was developed by a psychologist named Roger Callahan starting in the early 80s. And he developed a technique that allows us to be able to access parts of the mind, consciousness, that we don't have direct access to. Dr. Callan was a very successful psychologist, clinician, and he got interested in kinesiology muscle testing. A psychiatrist friend showed it to him, and he got interested. So he went and took the course, and he came back and he said, well, this is in chiropractic medicine. And he said there may be some applications for psychological emotional conditions. And so he started working with it. And by the time I met Dr. Callahan and started training with him in 96, he had a pretty well-developed system. And it was my pleasure to be with him for many years. He passed in 2013, but I was a lead trainer for them. So I know about all there is about thought field therapy. Now, thought field therapy can be described as a meridian point stimulus treatment. So you're using meridian treatment points and you're stimulating them by tapping on them. You could press on them or use a laser or whatever. But what Dr. Callahan found out is that if you listen carefully to the body through kinesiology muscle testing, it will tell you precisely what you need to do, the order of the tapping that is necessary. Now, today, we know this stuff works. There was one of Dr. Callahan's students developed something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. And between that and TFT, thought field therapy, there are over 400 peer-reviewed journal articles about this. There is 6 meta-analysis that say that it's the best way to approach traumatic stress. If you're interested in the research, if you go to the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology website, energysite.com, and click on the research button, you can get a quick synopsis of all of that's there. But it is the most tested approach today. And so I was lucky to learn it from Dr. Callahan, and I've been applying it ever since. And the idea is that you can approach and deal with things that you can't get through words, because most of the struggle that we have happens in what I call the bottom of the brain. They say it's supposed to be 3 parts of the brain, but there's a top of the brain and a bottom of the brain. And the top of the brain is where you have language. It's where you have the capacity to abstract, to create formulations that you can then do analysis or some kind of logic with and come to conclusions. And the top of the brain is where we have the language centers. And so we can share all of that stuff, or think we're sharing it anyway. I mean, what our own individual subjective experience is, I'm not sure I can truly tell you what that is, because it is within me, just as your subjective experience, as you define consciousness, is within you. And it's not something that's outside. Now, there is subjective and objective. Anyway, I don't want to get into this, but Dr. Callahan found that by using muscle testing, he could communicate directly with that subjective experience of another individual. And then through that, listen to what that other individual's inner wisdom, healer, needed for us to do to feel better.
So tapping on the meridians, what
Yes.
does that do when you tap on the energy points on the meridians?
Well, when you're doing that, essentially what we're doing is we're providing information to the control mechanism of the mind and the body and the emotions. And that Dr. Callahan would have much preferred, instead of calling it energy psychology, it was called informational psychology. But
Mm.
because it works with energy systems, meridian systems, chakra systems, biofields, those kinds of things,
Mhm.
it got categorized as energy psychology. And what happens is that you provide information that's needed at that moment to bring yourself to resolve whatever the discomfort is that you're having, and bring yourself. What I think it does is brings you completely, totally into the moment. And when you do that, then you can be present to what's around me, what do I want, who am I, what's my journey. So um, the best way to know about this is to experience it. Would you be willing to take
Yeah,
5 minutes and try something
let's do a
with me?
demo. Sure.
Okay. So now I know you've done a lot of work on your life.
I
Uh,
have.
oh, clearly. I mean, when you read your bio, there's a lot of stuff that you needed to work on, and
Yeah.
you probably have done it a lot. So what I would ask you to do is, and most people who come to see me, it's kind of a no-brainer. They're walking through the door because they've been traumatized or because they're not functioning, because that's not happening. But with somebody like you, I'm assuming you've done your work.
I've
So
done.
I would ask you to think about those pieces that are still unfinished a bit, that when you bring them to awareness, either through, I don't know if you're visual or kinesthetic, but when you bring it up, that you can still feel there's still a little bit of unfinished business. So
Yep.
if you would be so kind as to maybe look through your past and pick an event that
Sure.
when you consider that event, you still feel some upset in your body.
Can it be a current event?
Oh yeah, if it's something
Uh,
that's going on right now. Yeah.
yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So when you pull up this person or event, notice what you feel in your body.
Okay.
That's where we start. Do you notice some discomfort anywhere in your body?
Yes.
And where in your body is your chest, your neck?
Yeah, it's along the center meridian, kind of from
Okay.
plexus to heart chakra.
Okay. Okay. And that discomfort that you feel with that in that thought field, how bad is it? 0 to 10. 0 being no upset, no
4 or
problem at all.
5, like a 4 or a 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring you into that kind. We can do this with any number, but let's treat it, okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
like,
I'm going
you
to
know, when
do
I
is,
think about this situation, I have that kind of impulse of like a sense of tension, almost like a low-grade nausea that emerges in my system.
and that gets in the way because that keeps you from functioning as best you can. So Jackie, I'm going to do the most basic thing we do with you to start with, but I want you to know that if that doesn't work, we've got a whole lot of other things, and I won't leave you in this place that you feel
Okay, good, good,
things
good.
right now.
No, I'm fine. It's just when I call it to mind, that's the sensation. Then I engage with you, and it's not there.
Right.
So it's
Okay,
just
call it to mind.
okay.
Notice what you're feeling,
Yeah.
and then I want you to tap on the side of your hand.
Okay.
Tap under your nose. Tap the beginning of either eyebrow, under the eye, under the arm, under the collarbone. Index finger.
Oh, I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, it looks like you know some EFT. Tap under the collarbone.
Yeah, I've done EFT before.
Little finger.
Oh,
This
that
is
was
what came before EFT
okay.
and what I think comes after EFT, under the collarbone. Now tap the back of your hand between the two small knuckles about a half an inch down. It's what's called, it used to be called the bridge in EFT. They don't do it anymore, but close your eyes for a moment while you're tapping. Open your eyes. Look down left with your eyes. Look down right with your eyes. Whirl your eyes in a big circle. Back the other way. Hum. Count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Then hum again. And then we're going to repeat. Tap the side of your hand. Under nose. Beginning of eyebrow. Under eye. Under arm. Under collarbone. Index finger. Under collarbone. Tiny finger. Under the collarbone. Okay. So engage with whatever that is that you were connected with before, and tell me what you notice.
Spaciousness.
Ah, and how is that discomfort?
Yeah, I don't feel the discomfort. I don't feel the nausea or the tension.
Right.
Yeah.
And that brings you fully present into this moment. It brings you available to be able to access all of you in doing this and not be restricted by this fight or flight or worry or anxiety or whatever. But that's what the standard, that's the crisis tapping pattern we use in thought field therapy.
That's the crisis tapping pattern.
Yeah. We just call it that because it works for a lot of things.
Okay. Why the hum and the counting? I've never seen that before in EFT.
Well, that was Dr. Callahan developed this thing he called the 9-gamut series. And some people say it came out of, he was trained in everything, NLP and everything. I think it came out of some of this NLP work, but mostly what he described it is it was locating the thought in a different part of your brain. You know, when you shift your eyes, you're focusing in a different set of neural networks, and that's what that's about. And originally, Dr. Callahan included it in all of his work because, see, the thing about thought field therapy is it was no guessing. You know, with everything that we do, we have a muscle test that says, do you need this? Do you not need this? Do this technique. Did it work or didn't it work? And with a simple muscle test, we can tell whether or not we're on the right track. Now, if it didn't work, then, you know, one of the things I didn't like about EFT when I looked into it for a while was that if it doesn't work, they tell you to keep doing it. And my position is, now they may change the words a little bit or the language a little bit, but Dr. Callan's position is that if it's not working after 2 or 3 tries, do something else. You don't need to be keep trying to do something that doesn't work. Anyway, so with Dr. Callahan developed this with that in there. And when Gary Craig created EFT out of his work, he was a student of Dr. Callahan's for 3 years. He originally had what he called the bridge in EFT. Then later he got rid of the bridge, and later he got rid of some of the tab. So his whole quest, and I will never say to you that EFT doesn't work, because it does. There's lots of good research, and if it works for you, do more of it. And so I think that was the gift that Gary Craig brought us. He was an engineer, a businessman, and he was more about, I want to get this to people in simpler and simpler ways.
Yeah.
The problem is that Dr. Callahan was a psychologist, a scientist, a researcher, and wanted to go deeper and deeper in understanding what's behind all of this stuff. And to do that, you have to be complex sometimes.
Yeah. I still want to understand this question. What happens in your system when you tap the meridians? Like, what changes that you have these outcomes?
Well, you see, you got to remember that at the time that Dr. Callahan developed this, there wasn't this understanding of neuroplasticity that we had. There was this belief that if you had an experience and you learned something, you were stuck with it forever, right? And that there was, at the time that probably you and I started this, they said you had neurons at birth. Those are the neurons you had at death. You couldn't create new ones. But we know that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
But in the early 80s, in the 70s, when Dr. Callahan was working on this stuff, we didn't have any of this language. So he described what he was doing was reaching to something called the thought field, the control mechanism for the mind and the body and the spirit of the individual.
Which is what? What is he referencing when he uses that term, the thought field?
Well, I think he's referencing what you would call consciousness.
Consciousness. Okay.
It's that combination of the brain activity and the mind that allows us to formulate things and to think about things.
Right.
So the idea is when you're tapping, you're taking mechanical energy, you're hitting it on cells that then become biological energy, and then we shift it to as ions move from one side of a cell wall to the other, it becomes electromagnetic energy. The theory is that electromagnetic energy impacts chi energy. Chi energy then directly communicates, operates within that control mechanism called the thought field. Now, would he call it a thought field today? I don't know. We have a whole different way of understanding the way the mind works, and through neuroplasticity, the possibilities that are there, and that we know that we're not stuck with memories anymore. We can change them in different ways. I mean, memory reconsolidation theory, if you're familiar with that, says that you can activate a memory that's held in the bottom of the brain. And while it's in that activated state, you can provide new information, what they call juxtaposition and coherence therapy. And then when that memory reconsolidates, it becomes a different memory, which makes perfect sense because our memories change all the time. The more we think about it, the more we work on it. I'm sorry, I'm babbling on.
Yeah, that leads me to another question.
Okay.
How do you distinguish the difference between like a traumatic stressor and like we're living in a stressful time? I think it's the world itself is stressful, seeing people get ripped off the streets and sent to foreign countries, and
Right.
economic uncertainty, environmental collapse. I mean, it's all around us of all the uncertainties. So how do you distinguish that, just what we're living in today, from traumatic stress?
Okay, so yes, how do you distinguish between stress or small t stress and large T stress? Okay, let's just, the way I like to think about it is in medicine, in the world of medicine, if you go into an ER and you're going to a trauma center, what that means is trauma is the ripping and tearing of flesh. So if you're in medicine and you say you're doing trauma, you're dealing with ripping and tearing of flesh. Now, that usually doesn't heal itself unless you do some things to help it. Now, you can go in and they'll say, oh, my shoulder's sore, I'm achy, I've got inflammation, I've got pain. And they would not say that's necessarily trauma. They would say that that's your body's reactions to stressors in the environment. There's nothing wrong with that because without stress, you don't build muscle.
Right.
The key is what happens is the story I often tell is like if I go into the gym, right, and I'm doing bicep curls and I'm feeling good about it, and then I think to myself, oh, okay, Diane's standing over there. My wife Diane is standing over there. I want to show her a little bit, so I pick up the instead of the 20-pound dumbbell, I pick up the 25-pound, and I can feel the stress that's going on. Maybe even I get to a point of complete fatigue. Now, that's not trauma. That's fatigue, that's stress. And if I just let it rest for a minute, it's going to get better. And if I let it rest for a couple of days, I'll build muscle, I'll feel better. Now, what happens if I'm in the gym and I decide that I want to be really, impressive? And so I pick up that 35-pound dumbbell or that 40-pound dumbbell, and I start to do a couple of reps, and I hear a pop, a tear. Now, that's not healthy stress. That's now I've traumatized that muscle by ripping and tearing a tendon or a muscle or something like that. Now, when you get to a point where you're traumatized, where the traumas happen, it doesn't heal unless you put some active work into it. It means you got to go to the doctor. You need an MRI. You may have to have surgery. You may have to have it in a sling for 3 months, but you're going to have to do an intervention. And in the body sense, that's what trauma is. In a psychic sense, traumatic stress is the ripping and tearing of our psyche to a point where it's not going to recover on its own without us putting some real effort into it. And so when somebody is saying it's like, it's one thing that, I'm walking down a dark street and I'm feeling something uncomfortable. I'm feeling stressed, or I hear some footsteps. That's stressful. Okay. That's different than when somebody hits me in the face. That's different when somebody is about to end my life or to harm somebody who I love, right? That vicarious traumatization is as real as what's happening, but it means that something more than just a stress is happening. It really is that my coping mechanism has become overwhelmed and something is broken, is torn.
So can a person who's kind of trying to work through a trauma, can they use thought field therapy on their own, or they need a practitioner?
Yeah. That's part of what I love about it. It's really it's about self-empowerment.
Yeah.
You don't need a psychologist. You don't need anybody. You just need to listen to your body to come to a place of saying, what am I feeling in my body? Let's tap. And notice that one of the difference between thought field therapy and EFT is we don't need the words. Roger was very clear about this, that in the beginning, he found words were useful in some ways, but generally they get in the way. If I would have had to say to you, all right, Jackie, let's talk about this thing that's coming up that's so upsetting to you. You would have had to disclose things. We would have had to talk about it. We had to arrive at meanings. We would have had to do that before we came up with the setup statement that they talk about it in EFT. In TFT, we don't bother with that. If you feel it, then tap.
Okay. Can it be used for physical ailments as well?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
I found lots of applications of it because most physical ailments have a psychological component. I mean, even a broken arm, if you tap for the pain, it's going to heal faster. If you have, if you've overdone it and you pulled a ligament or you've just stressed a muscle, you can do that. We find it useful in migraines and headaches.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I've used it for motion sickness. Yeah. And how often does a person need to apply the tapping thought field therapy approach to, resolve?
Again, listen to your body, listen to the experience. For example, if you bring up that event that we talked about before and you feel something is happening, it's probably that you're looking at it from a different perspective, or you're aware of it in relationship to a past trauma or something. Tap again. So we in thought field therapy, we're about you use tapping to help you when you need it.
Nice.
And now I would guess that when I treat somebody for a trauma, a specific event, it doesn't affect them again in the same way. It may affect them in a different way, but we want to heal that at the very fundamental, essential control information place that we were holding that.
Nice. Nice. Do you have a particular success story of people who've used TFT to recover from a trauma?
Oh, I've got a whole book full of it. I mean, my book is a lot of stories about recovering from trauma. And I've worked, if you name it, I probably worked with somebody who's had that experience. I mean, I describe myself as somebody says, well, what do you do, Bob? And I said, well, just think of me as the guy you never want to meet. When the worst thing in the world happens to you and you get thrown off your path, you're in the ditch because you're wrecked because of the horrible thing that's happened to you or people you love, and you can't keep going. I'm just like that tow truck driver who comes along and pulls you out of the ditch and makes sure that you're up and running again. And so I've had the honor, the pleasure the joy of helping people who have been in severe combat situations. I've worked with people who were, abused as children. I mean, I'm talking about the top 3% kind of abuse that happened to kids and people who are trafficked. And I've worked with a lot of law enforcement, firefighters. So there's not much that I haven't heard of. So when you ask me to pick a story, what kind of story you want to hear? Tell me and I'll come.
Yeah, I was just looking for a concrete application. That's all, Bob.
Oh, well, if I look at what's going on with any particular client, I've got a client who was severely abused as a child. And what happens is when she's in the presence of certain kinds of situations, I'm going to do this because I think we're of the same mind. But I had a client who came to me in 2016 because she was severely incested and abused as a child. And when President Trump came on the first time, he reminded her every time she saw his face or heard his voice, she was reminded of her grandfather who abused her. And so the reason she came back into therapy, now she'd been out of therapy for probably 10, 15 years because she was doing great, but she was getting triggered consistently and she just couldn't focus. So we had her come back. We did some treatment for the abuse that happened to her as a child because that's what she was getting triggered into. And then being triggered by his image again. Now, I have seen her lately since the last election. It's sort of, there's some unfinished business or other things going on. But whatever that trigger is, whether it's a person, a place, an event, then you need to address it because your body's still reacting to it. Probably for good reason. I mean, do I think she had a good reason for being triggered by Trump? Well, yes.
I think a lot of women might have had that experience. So that's the kind of application when there's a past trauma, even when it's been resolved, but there's a new or a current trigger.
Right.
Just going back in, looking at it, tapping again from this new perspective. Even
you don't have to figure it out cognitively.
Yeah,
we don't have to figure out why this is happening.
Right.
We just know it's happening. We can focus on that and then follow the body's description or instruction.
I love the simplicity of it. And so you're still working with clients, correct? Do you work with people just in person or remotely as well?
Oh, I probably do. I prefer to do in person. So I'm doing at least half in person, but I also do remote. See, the nice thing about muscle testing is get into the more advanced course, which let me plug my training. I have a 4-day training that I do a couple of times a year. The next one's going to be in a retreat center in Santa Fe. But I teach people everything they need to know about muscle testing, including how to do it at the most basic level and how to do it at the most advanced level, which is what Dr. Callan was doing. So I can treat people remotely using myself as a surrogate to test for them. So if need be, most of the time we don't need to get that complicated.
Yeah, just very simple. I love the simplicity of it. So Dr. Bray, thank you so much for being with us. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
If you'd like to come to the 4-day training, you're welcome to come as my guest.
Oh, that's very, very kind of you. I appreciate that. And people can get in touch with you at your website. Just tell people the URL.
It's www.rlbray.com. That's my name, Robert Lee Bray.
Robert Lee Bray. So rlbray.com. And we'll have that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Bray, for being here with us and talking about this very fascinating field of thought field therapy. It's really great to be with somebody who is such an expert at that. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate being here and that you've given me some more thoughts about consciousness. How do we work with this? Thank you.
Happy to share. Thank you.